Welcome. Gio and I are here with John Wallace, co-founder and CEO at Workbox, and sitting in my favorite city, Chicago, Illinois. John, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jamie. Gio.
John was on the Everything Coworking podcast not that long ago. I should have
Yeah,
looked it up. Before Juicy, was it? It might have been longer ago than I think. Time does fly because Juicy was in
that's
April and we'd already met in April.
that's right. Maybe
So
a year
maybe it was a year ago. That's crazy. I can't believe it's almost juicy time again. So here we are.
ago.
And Geo's in 10-degree Dallas, Texas today because you can't get anywhere because there are no flights,
Sounds right.
Part of it, yes, true.
basically. Yeah. I don't ever watch the news because I don't want to know about all the terrible things happening out there. But did you know there was a plane that lost the fuselage? No one died, but some kid lost his shirt.
It was insane. So they grounded a bunch of those new Boeings.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I don't like to know about those things because I don't want to think about that the next time I get on a plane. So
Yes.
tuning it out. Gio, you want to
So,
kick us
John,
off?
you were just actually on a pretty crazy travel adventure to Kansas City, you were telling me. So
That's
you've
right.
experienced
Yeah.
some fun winter.
So, yeah, I was supposed to go to a day trip to do some site visits in Kansas City, and I started with a flight at 7 a.m. I was sitting in the tarmac until about 11 a.m. Then I missed all my morning meetings. I got there at about 1:30, just in time to try to get back at 5, but then my flight was delayed, and then three flights later we ended up spending the night in Kansas City. So it was cold there. It was -10 in Chicago and -7 in Kansas City, and I think that's really unusual for Kansas City, so it was completely shut down.
Yeah, yikes. Kansas
But
City used to be quite the mover and shaker in co-working and flex. I'm trying to remember the name of it. They had a really large operator that made it sort of like a high per capita co-working. And
okay.
Juicy was there one time.
Huh? Yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't that really cool?
Yeah. The hangar? Was it at the
The
hangar?
hangar. Yeah.
Yeah. Great
Still one of the
food.
scariest, coolest parts of my co-working experience. So it was when I first met the Verizon team. And she's like, "Can we talk to you for a minute?" And I end up in some dark room
With
with
Lucia. She's very
with like
intimidating.
four people looking down at me and some Italian woman interrogating me. And I was just like, I'm really uncomfortable right now. How do I get out of this? But
Gio.
it was really cool. All right. So enough about all that fun stuff. So
Totally.
John, tell us about your background, first of all, because you got an incredible background, which is kind of what led you into Workbox, but would love to hear about that.
Yeah, sure. So founded Workbox in 2019. Prior to that, I was on the real estate investment side of the equation. So spent just about 4 years at Brookfield Asset Management, helping to run their global listed real estate fund out of Chicago. Prior to that, 10 years at LaSalle Investment Management. So I was running the Asia Pacific strategy out of Hong Kong for just under 3 years, helped build the European strategy in Amsterdam for 5, and then a bunch of buy and sell side roles in the US prior to that. So I looked at the sector from all sorts of different lenses, all different geographies, and decided to leave a perfectly good paying job to get into the co-working sector in 2019.
I know I loved it. What was that moment when you woke up and you're like, I should leave this well-paying, stable,
I
intellectually
know,
challenging job and get into flex?
exactly.
What were you seeing then that made you make that decision?
Well, I believe in co-working. I mean, I believe in it so much that I bet my career on it. I think that there's just a lot of value and optionality that it adds. But, I'd covered all sorts of different sectors. I had also covered the hotel sector. I thought that co-working needed to go the way of the hotel sector in a couple different ways. One, I thought that the kind of Marriott model, the management agreement structure really made sense. It just offered better alignment with owners and operators. And, so we wanted to kind of create that in commercial office. And then the other thing I think that the hotel sector does, better than our sector at this point is just segmentation and value prop to different customers. There's select service, full service, luxury, urban, suburban, resort. in hotels and in co-working. I think to date, there are some brands that kind of focus on different groups and different types of build outs. But if we talk WeWork as an example, the spectrum is really wide. You have big corporates, and then you have one-off, individuals that are trying to get out of the house, and it's just very hard to provide value to a spectrum that wide. So that was the other thing we wanted to focus on. And, because my background was in investments, I thought we could focus on early and growth stage businesses and do something more than just office space. So we started a venture fund, Workbox Ventures, that can invest in companies. We run an accelerator. We do a bunch of programming that really caters to, small companies, early growth stage companies. And that's why I took the jump.
I thought Gio was going to follow up. He's muted. Gio, you're muted. What's going on over there?
I was letting you talk. That was my way of telling you I'm giving you permission.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sometimes we argue over who gets to talk next. So we do have a drinking game. If you say the word Bonvoy, then we do shots. And actually,
Okay.
the Bonvoy strategy was, we just released today our 2024 prediction episode, and we talked about that. Vast, I'm sure you've seen the news that Vast acquired Intelligent Offices, and that they're, sort of going after that
Yep.
segmentation. So I mean, do you see, so right now you have sort of a specific segment that you're going after, which doesn't reflect sort of a Bonvoy strategy. Will that change over time? Or is this the segment you want to contribute to the industry?
I think that, for now, this is the segment that we want to focus on. I think that it's a big segment. And, for what we're trying to do and how we've kind of build our programming and, all of the services that we're providing, it's really targeted at that group. We think about when we're looking at acquiring new properties, we're focused on, heavily built out private offices in urban or urban edge locations. We want to be in cities where there's a lot of new company formation, where there's capital available to early stage companies. And it's the kind of that focus, I think, that allows us to kind of execute better. If we were to start to go after, enterprise or some other customer base, we don't really have the infrastructure for that. So, we're path of least resistance folks, and we're going after what we know, the customers we know, the product they like, the services that they find valuable.
Okay, so you took over a WeWork location, and we've seen those locations, and they kind of cater to enterprise. They tend to have like big corner suites that are, 50 seats. So how does that play out for this segment for you?
Yeah, I think it is a mix. We're still, even within WeWorks that we're exploring, we want heavily cut up spaces, with ones, twos, threes. We can fill a 20 or 30 person office, but we certainly don't want that to be the majority of our space. Down the road, if enterprise space is the only space available, at some point we could start exploring, bringing some small development arm to our business and be able to cut that up and work with landlords to kind of help make that more sellable for our product. But right now, where there's plenty of space and, plenty of opportunities to go around, cut up the way we like it. We also, the other thing I'll say, and you guys both know this, it's nice to have a little bit of product mix. If someone loves your brand and someone loves the location, the worst thing that can happen is that you don't have product for them when they walk in.
When they grow. Yeah. Or grow,
so
right? Out of, Yep.
So, and the other nice thing about
brand.
Yep.
So speaking of brand, how'd you land on Workbox?
Yeah, so initially when I started this, we wanted to be a toolbox for companies that are growing their business, and, Workbox, there's a lot of brands out there that, it's difficult to know exactly what industry they're in. So we decided on Workbox because I thought it was pretty self-explanatory, and it kind of fit kind of the toolbox kind of focus that we wanted to be. Kind of, we wanted to be the wrench and the hammer and the screwdriver that, early companies needed to kind of get off the ground.
So you're doing primarily partnership deals with landlords.
Yep.
Yeah. And they like the segmentation. I mean, you've picked not a niche exactly, but a segment of the user base that you want to support that is not enterprise. So when you, is that like, I assume that's part of the story to the landlord, like, this is who we're for, this is what we're selling, and they are comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the nice thing about the segment that we're going after is it's a segment that the landlords and the commercial brokers aren't really
Serving.
set up to go after or incentivized to go after. So, putting my Brookfield or LaSalle hat on, the nice thing about our brand is that we bring diversification and a different kind of customer
Yeah,
base
yeah.
and what
Yeah.
they're looking for. The problem with going enterprise, and this is something that I looked at when I was at Brookfield, is that you start to just almost be in direct competition to a landlord.
Right. Well, like, no, we
And
like them in a lease. We don't need them in your space in 100 seats or right. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And I do even in a direct lease, I think, you're in the subletting business. And I think that there is room for that strategy. I also think that if you go down that strategy, you're very much competing, for the sublease market and Brookfield and Blackstone and Hines and Tishman, have really strong relationships there. So I don't know how much value we could add to that customer base.
So do you know Perry with Industrious by any chance?
Perry,
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, I know a few of the folks there, but no,
Yeah,
not
so
Perry.
he's head of real estate for North America, and we had him on a few weeks ago, and he's an attorney by trade, so also a really smart guy. And he was sharing, we had this discussion about management deals and
Yeah.
how so many people are talking about all they're doing are management deals. And that word is overused
Yeah.
and not properly used in our opinion, as we've discussed, because there's so many different ways to do non-traditional deals
Yep.
that everyone calls every non-traditional deal management agreement. And as far as I'm concerned, when I think of a management agreement, that's straight management fee, like in a hotel, right? Using Bonvoy,
Yeah.
drink, is because the owner of the building is paying for whatever fit out needs to be done, and they're paying for the operational side, plus they're covering the building operations and everything else. Part of what we discussed with Perry, and most people are doing some type of non-traditional deal that's a percentage rent, some type of profit sharing structure. What do your deals look like?
Yeah. I don't know. Gio, did you freeze or?
Ideally, and kind of what are you seeing out there in the market?
Yep. So, everybody calls things different. We don't call them management agreements. We call them shared economic arrangements. So, because that's truly what they are. We're partners in every building. Our two strategies are really pretty straightforward. If it's a vacant space where we're going to have to take it from 0 occupancy to 85% occupancy, we're doing rev share deals. And that split depends on kind of the situation. Usually we're trying to get landlords to a gross rent, an equivalent gross rent to what the market would be in that market, but they're not getting a rent abatement. There's no lease up time, and usually our TI ask is significantly less than what the market TI is. So the ROIs for landlords are 8 to 12x what they would be in even a conventional lease. When we're taking over live member transitions, we're usually doing profit shares. That's a waterfall structure where there's some minimum rent, usually covers a T&O. Then there's operating expenses that are covering our operating expenses, and then some distribution after that. And
And
pretty
so
much,
let's talk about
yep.
your growth. I mean, where are you at in your growth? I mean, I know you've signed some new deals recently. Kind of what is
Yeah.
your goal?
What is my goal for
For the company, how many locations, how many
yeah, so
markets?
when we started this, we wanted to be a public company. We've brought on public company people. So our board, like one of our board advisors, Ed Ryan, was the ex-global general counsel of Marriott. He was kind of the orchestrator of the OpCo-PropCo split in Marriott. And when I was at Brookfield, I had the fortune of having access to that kind of level of person. And we discussed this strategy way before, 2019, when I actually went in and left the perfectly good paying job to start the business. But in addition to that, our head of real estate was a C-level person with a public REIT. Our general counsel was a C-level person with a public REIT. My CFO is, ex Brookfield. So we've brought a team in that knows listed markets, and part of our goal is to really institutionalize the co-working sector. We've got operators as part of our business, but we also think like landlords and know kind of the hurdles that landlords need. So we're trying to, build a business, that is sustainable and can grow and that adds value to landlords, but also is institutionalized enough that, can trade in the public market. So that's really our goal. How big is that? 100 locations is probably a start. We've got a long way to go. We can dream big, but I think we focus on, one step at a time, trying not to bite off more than we can chew. So if we grow 3 to 5 locations next year, that's going in the right way. And, I think that then there's ability to continue to accelerate that growth from next year.
So, John Wallace, what is your favorite thing to do outside of the office?
So it used to be, travel and going out to nice restaurants and things like that. Like I said before we started recording, I have a 4 and a 1.5-year-old. So, nowadays it's getting to play with them and watch them grow up. I'm a runner too. Like when I need to clear my head, I like to get out and run when it's not minus 10 degrees here in Chicago. But I was fortunate living abroad for almost 8 years, getting to travel and see the world. So we got it in early. I always joke, you either play the front 9 or the back 9. We definitely played the front 9.
Yeah.
Playing a lot slower these days, but having 2 little kiddos is a lot of fun too and keep us on our toes.
So what do you do with all the energy during the winter?
Again, I'm 44 years old and I chase after a 4 and a 1.5-year-old. So that's plenty of energy. I'm expending energy as best I can, just trying to keep up with them. So
when you live in a place like Chicago, you also just sort of deal with it, right? I remember I would go running, I'd put on like my ski mittens. I get really cold hands, don't make fun, and just layer up, right? And you kind of go out and make it work.
I feel like every year
Not at minus 10.
Yeah.
10, but
it hits you harder every year. I don't know if your like circulation gets worse and worse as you get older, but man, just walking out to grab a coffee today was tough for me.
minus 10 is tough for anyone. That's yeah, legit cold. Oh yeah, when I ski, I have like the boot heaters, I have the gloves with the hand electric, like, or I guess they're battery hand warmers in them. Got all the things.
Yeah.
And you talked about your board and kind of the preparation there. What about your actual team, your ops team? I know you've got a pretty strong team.
Yeah, we have a great team. My goal is always to hire people that are more competent than me. So I think we've got a very good team across the spectrum. So from ops, she comes from hospitality. Caitlin McAllister, she was IHG, Starwood. We got to know each other because she was running an incubator here in Chicago. If you guys are familiar with Catapult Chicago, they were kind of absorbed by 1871. So actually she started kind of helping us with our programming on the services side, which is really our differentiation, but has kind of evolved into kind of ops as that's become, key to our scaling the business. Our head of sales comes from Expansive. Our head of marketing comes from United Airways. We, like I said, our head of real estate comes from public REITs, same with our general counsel. And then we just have a great ops team and sales team to support that. So we're about 35 people right now, maybe just under that. We have 8 locations in 4 cities.
This is unique in the industry, having the level of executive team, board and general team that you have. I sort of want to say, like, don't try this at home. I think one of the challenges of scaling in this business, right, is carrying overhead. Like, you've got a long-term plan and you've got a goal to be public. And so you're building to that end. And a lot of operators, can't start there, right, with that level of talent and that kind of team. So that's a pretty incredible asset to be able to, kind of get out of the gates with that level of, intellectual capital and experience from a lot of different industry. I mean, hospitality, real estate, investment side, with your background and some of the folks you worked with. So that's pretty unique and a cool advantage, because it probably also just makes it more fun. I think one of the challenges with starting some of this stuff is sort of you leave behind like a lot of that, like thought partners and the level of team that you get to surround yourself with. And most operators have to really build into that. And so to be there at 8 locations is a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone in our team is excited about like making an impact in the sector. I think a lot of us are kind of, recovering corporate people that just wanted to be able to have the ability to make an impact. And I think
More meaning.
yeah, and I think we control our own fate, which is, it's awesome and it's terrifying at the same time. I think a lot of people were like looking at me and thinking like he's crazy enough to do it. Maybe I'll try it. But, I think everyone here is excited about building and excited about owning a vertical and excited about our industry, because I think that there is a lot of things to be excited about. I really do believe that flex office, co-working, workspace companies, however you want to characterize us, are going to lead the recovery in the commercial office sector. And I think, if not every landlord is talking about it now, they're thinking it. So I think it's a great opportunity. It's an enormous market. It just needs to continue to mature and grow. And, we hope that we can have an impact there. And there's also some other great operators that are making a difference as well.
Okay, I'm looking at your website, and I actually think the last time we talked, your story was not as consistent with the language on your site. I'm not picking on you, but because you have this clear commitment to that segment, and it seems very clear on your site now, like who you serve and how you're different and what those resources look like, which I think, and that what you said about going after enterprise versus this segment just makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think landlords, and even the broker side, I was having a conversation with an asset owner in Dallas who Geo knows, and they got really lucky and have a really great broker on the, leasing agency side. And I was trying to explain to them, like, you got lucky. Like, they're talking about like the broker open house they were going to, and I was like, no, the rest of the brokers, not the rest, but a lot of brokers like really don't understand flex, or they want to go after the enterprise. They want to get at least like the incentive structures really kind of line up with how things, work today. And is that going to change? And you're just like saying like, look, we're going after a segment that is not really served by traditional real estate. And they're not looking necessarily at, unless their broker tries to get them to, if they have a broker, at sublease or, whatever, and the services that you wrap around their experience. And you're talking to a segment, I remember you said this last time that we talked, that sees the value of being together in a location when they can be. Like maybe they have a distributed team, but like the stage of the company requires like, we need to be able to look at each other in the eyeball and sort of talk real time and not do that only over, Slack and Zoom. So I like it. And I like the updates to the site. I think it's like, I'm all about the who are you serving and make it like, this is for me, comes across really well.
Thanks, Jamie. I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get a homogeneous population and get them we add these services that are interesting and things that are definitely important to their business. But at the end of the day, we're trying to, set up situations where they're going to connect, because, all of the companies at this stage, at the end of the day, what they want is connection. And so we're trying to make that an easier process. And we do that, in person. We do that through the services we provide. We do that from virtual programming where, members from Salt Lake City can connect with members from Columbus. And at the end of the day, that is what we're trying to do as good or better than anyone else.
So, question for you.
Yeah.
What would your partner and children, if they could speak, because I know they can't, what would they say about you if they could?
What would they say about me? Depends on the day,
On a
Today,
good day.
It can be very
today,
positive or
today.
very negative depending on what has happened. You know, I what I try very hard to do, and something that I try to be conscious about, and anyone who's started anything from scratch knows how involved it is and how much work it is, and that you never, you're not able to go on vacation, you're never truly off. But my goal is to make sure that when I'm home that I'm present. And if that means I leave at 5 p.m. and I put the kids down at to 8, and then I'm working till midnight. What I'm trying to do is just be present for my family, because I think that is, at the end of the day, the most important thing to me. And I don't always do it, but I hope that my wife and my kids are notice that and appreciate that, and I appreciate their support as well. Because again, there was a time we were living in Hong Kong and we take weekend trips to Bali and go to the beach and all the fun stuff, and those days aren't happening anymore. So
Those are in the rearview
so
mirror for a while.
you need a lot of support, and yeah, I'm fortunate to have it.
That's great. Back to growth, you actually recently made an addition to the team on the real estate side to really focus on that.
Yep.
What background does he bring, and kind of why'd you decide to bring that in-house? I mean, obviously, not everyone has an in-house team. Some people outsource stuff. I know you work closely with Kloppenberg to some extent
Yeah.
in various markets, and just kind of what kind of made you decide at this time, where we are in the financial world and just overall everything going on, that now is the right time to do that?
What we try to do is build, you try to push things up to a point until your capacity restrained, and you start becoming the bottleneck. From a real estate standpoint, if there was one role that I'm probably most qualified to do, is negotiate real estate deals. But that is all consuming to a point where I there's so many other things that I need to be focused on, whether it's streamlining operations or tech systems, or branding or programming, or all the things that anybody who's watching this, who's starting a co-working business, probably is going through. I wasn't doing a good job. I was like, what were the terms that we agreed to that we're trading paper on for this one? So, I wanted to bring someone in who really understands real estate, that, came from a real estate owner standpoint, that understands their pain points. Tim was chief portfolio officer at Ventas, which, was the second biggest REIT in the country, and was the COO of CCP, which was their spinoff. He, first part of his career, he was in commercial real estate, and then he went to healthcare real estate. I like healthcare too, because, in the senior housing, there's some shared economics, OPCO, PropCo things going on. But he came from an operational standpoint. So, it's sexy to be an acquisition guy, but operation people have to deal with what the acquisition people bring to the portfolio. So, I think he just complements the team really nicely. And, I think that's really key. And also, landlords are comfortable, speaking, his speak. And I think that's really valuable to the team. So, we are still very much a team. He was stuck with me in a crappy hotel in Kansas City as well last night when we were doing property tours and meeting individuals. But, I think, ramping up on the brand and the differentiation and the sector. But I wanted someone that really understood, real estate ROIs and where to, drive and negotiate and things like that. So probably way more than you wanted to hear about our strategy. But, I want I want to be able to fire myself in every single role that I'm involved in. If we're going to be a company that's going to grow, I can't be involved in every single deal. I am still involved in every single deal, but my goal is that, we'll continue to have our team running things. And then, maybe I can go skiing with Jamie.
Yes, on a bank holiday.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At some point in the future.
Well, and the real estate deals are the bottleneck to growth, right? Like in reality,
Yeah.
you can scale all the back end stuff. You can have the best website. If you can't get the deals done, I love it that you're being, reasonable about how many you could actually do in a year, because there's still people in the industry who tell you they're going to open, 100 new locations next year. Well, we've yet to see that happen. I mean, IWG has a method for getting to those numbers. But in reality, that's really hard to do. Or you do it like WeWork did, and now
Yeah.
that's so right. Adding capacity to that role is pretty critical if you can do it.
Yeah, and I think, everybody's in a different phase and life cycle. What we know is, infill locations are the best. So, we're trying to balance continue infill with a new location. I also understand, that if we want to be big and investable at that level, you do have to have a portfolio that's national, but you don't want to, you don't want to go into too many new markets too quick, because, then you stop delivering on the services that you're promising.
And as far as your overall plans for just markets, I mean, is it based off of opportunities? Is it based off, I mean, do you have a strategic idea of what markets you want to be in, or kind of how are you approaching that?
Yeah. So like I said at the beginning, I think that there is, we want, sufficient population, new company formation, access to capital. So, the cities that I would throw out there are cities that would not surprise you. We are more urban focused. So, we're focused on cities that have some residential density and activity and activation there. When we're looking at the companies that we're looking at, once you reach a certain size as a founder or executive of a small company, you stop thinking about what's convenient just to you, and you have to think about where is infrastructure, how does everyone get here, so that we can retain talent. So those are the kind of things that go through our head. It is opportunistic in some capacity, in that, if we find a good deal in a city that we like, we'll focus on that city, and then, maybe a city that also could be good, we'll put, on the side for a while as we kind of build out that infrastructure. But if I said, in round numbers, we're going to add 6 locations, we'd want to do 3 infill and then maybe 3 new markets. And that's kind of how we think about our growth, at least at this point in our life cycle.
And I didn't know you were in Salt Lake City. I'm sure Liz has already been calling you.
Yeah. Good snow out there. People.
Totally. Yeah. Everybody here is going there for the skiing. So Salt Lake Mini, I think when we had just talked, you just opened Minneapolis, and then you've added Columbia and Salt Lake since then.
That's right. Yeah. So just keeping our heads down.
Well, Jamie, you ready for?
Oh, it is time. Ready? Okay. So my wrap-up question is, okay, you have a babysitter, you've been out to dinner, you've, had a couple of cocktails. Now it's time for karaoke. What's your karaoke song?
Ooh. You got to go Don't Stop Believing. I think that's always a crowd
Please.
pleaser, easy to do. I need support of the audience.
Okay.
The worst decision I ever made in karaoke was I was in Berlin and, stood on stage, and I decided that I would sing Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. And about 5 words into it, I realized it was a bad decision. And that song is very long. So you need the support of the crowd to get you through. Or a lot of booze.
I like it. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. This was fun. Are we going to see your team at Juicy in Salt Lake?
yeah, I think some of us will be out there. So I'm not sure that I'll be out there, but we just opened our Salt Lake City location in July or August. So yeah, we're trying to get it out there and get the word out there. So somebody from our team will be out that way.
Awesome. Good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Good to see you. Stay warm.